I just came back from my crew rest. We've been in the air now 9 hours and 35 minutes. And I'm in the 777-200LR from PMDG. We're currently cruising at 36,000 feet offline for the moment. Let me check here on Project Fly where we are. Gotta mute myself here. Where we That's not what I wanted to do. Create our dashboard is probably what I want. Alright, there we go. So, like I said, at the moment, 360, 3,287 miles to go. Estimating arrival in London at 3:54 Zulu, which will be 4:54 in the morning local time. So quite early in the morning, and as far as our flight plan goes, we are it had me landing in London at 4:21 Zulu, so we're quite a bit early. Planned flight time gate to gate 17 hours 11 minutes, 16 hours 56 in the air. So yeah, we're early, which must mean that the winds are lighter than expected, which is great. And estimating 43,600 pounds of fuel when we get there. I believe my reserves are somewhere around 30,000 pounds of fuel, so we're in good shape fuel-wise. In long-range cruise at the moment. So we're holding at 0.84 Mach. And yeah, that's where we are. So if you want to check in, say hi in the chat room, keep me entertained, because it's a day I lost count of quarantine, and as much as I like long flights, I'm bored to tears at 36,000 feet, to be quite honest. So like I say, if you want to check in, please feel free. Let me see if I can browse some flight sim news or something here. I'm not going to stream for the remainder of the flight because that would be crazy. But I am going to stream for a little bit. Technically, my internet service provider has waived the data limit temporarily. So, don't have to worry about streaming too much until early May, anyway. Though I have noticed that when I'm watching Twitch videos, the quality seems to be degrading lately. Not getting the full HD fidelity that I might like. So I did go on a bit of a spending spree, as today is payday. Not a huge spending spree, but enough of one to make an impact on my tight budget. First thing I bought was MK Studios Keflavik, which I haven't tested out yet. I'm on my way towards Keflavik, London, and then possibly Keflavik, or maybe some hopping around Europe or something once we get to London. We'll see how tired I am. So that's the temporary plan. But my series of legs so far in this outing has been San Francisco to Singapore, which was some 16 hours and 22 minutes, I think, in that case, in the air. Then I went and I did that with the 787. And then I traded the 787 in for the Aerosoft A330 and took that from Singapore to Perth, which was a nice flight, flying over the Orbix Australia region down to Perth. I still don't remember who does the scenery for Perth. I may look it up. But anyway, flew down to Perth and tried to do an A330 leg to the other scenery that I bought, which is Imagine Sim's rather antiquated but still functional New Delhi. But the sim crashed on me. One of 3 times I think I've had CTD lately. So they're not that frequent for me, but when they happen, of course, it's painful and awful. So recovered from that, and the timing was right to do Qantas Flight 9 from Perth to London. Of course, the real world route excuse me, is operated by a 787-9, and I'm having problems getting the Quality Wing 787 to auto step climb. I will figure it out eventually, but I haven't figured it out yet. So I decided not to take the 787, opted instead for the PMDG 777-200LR, which has more than sufficient range to do this flight. I've actually done Newark to Singapore with this airplane before. And there goes a center fuel tank, so let's take care of that. Open the fuel page on the lower ICAS. As you can see, I have an auxiliary tank and a center tank. That 0.2 in the center tank isn't going to go away, so I'm just going to turn off the center fuel pumps. And we'll watch that change from green to white, indicating that the center tank is no longer being used. We now have an even fuel balance of 68.9 in each tank, 138 to go in the tank, and like I said, estimating 43,600 pounds of fuel upon arrival in London at this point. So fuel wise, we're in good shape. We are, if you'll notice on my nav display here, this is a rather convoluted, complex route that Professional Flight Planner X gave me, and I just kind of took it without asking questions because I was feeling lazy at the time, and because there wasn't a real-world flight plan to steal because all the flights are canceled at the moment. So I just stole the flight plan, imported it via the FMS ACARS simulator thing. And now we are approaching Dubai, as we can see by the indicator there. I put it in the fix page. Perth, we can erase that now because we're miles away from Perth. And miles away from Singapore. So that only leaves Dubai left in the fix page. There are other en route alternates, but Dubai was one of my ETOPS alternates. I'm 330 ETOPS tonight. So we're now 172 miles from Dubai. So if we had a problem at this point, which we won't because failures are off, but if we did, we'd be going to Dubai. So that's the situation there. What else is there for me to talk about? Not much going on in the flight deck at the moment. I'm just trying to stay awake and keep myself entertained here. And hopefully by proxy keep you entertained. So back to talking about the things I recently purchased. I purchased MK Studios Keflavik Imagine Sims New Delhi. And I also picked up another Just Plains videos. I'm addicted to that. I got the Iceland Air 757-200 video, which covers the flight from Keflavik to Seattle, which is a very cool flight. Up over the northern wilds of Greenland, Baffin Island, north of Hudson Bay, and then northern Canada, and down from there, crossing the U.S. border, and then the Seattle area, of course. But I spent some time in Seattle, lived there for probably about a year and a half. I lived in Everett, which is actually where the main Boeing factory is. So by all rights, I should be a big Boeing fan, but honestly, the more I expose myself to Airbus, the more I find the Airbus appealing. I feel, though, that the Airbus is severely underrepresented on the P3D platform. Aerosoft makes the A330 and the A320 series, and then FS Labs, which is higher detail, more fidelity, makes the A320 series as well. So far as I can tell, all the crashes to desktops I've had recently, except one where my video card said, no. So I'd say 2 out of the 3 of the crashes to desktop I've had recently are to do with the Aerosoft A330. I'm about 90% sure of that. So, I can tell you that the Aerosoft A330 is still buggy. I waited to purchase it for 3 months, and there's still bugs. So, I'm not thrilled about that. But I do like the airplane. I do like having the 330. So, this 330 has a range of about 6,300 miles. So, more range than the original 777-200 had. Carries about the same amount of people. But it doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't quite do the jobs that, I would like it to do. You know, in the neighborhood of 12-hour or more flights, because that's not the majority of the flights I do with the 777. The majority of the flights I do with the 777 and the 78 and 74 even are about 9.5 to 10 hours long, which the A330 can do. But nonetheless, I like having the option of going further. And obviously the A330 can't do this leg. And it's, you know, 6,300 mile range is kind of a limitation. So that's the way that goes. So it's the 777. PMDG makes a very solid, very good airplane in this simulation. I can take you through some of the displays here if you like. We'll start on the first officer's PFD, primary flight display. Up at the top there, you have what are called flight mode enunciators. This is what tells you at any one point what the autopilot is doing. And I'm trying to move the pop-out panel and I can't, so I know it's we've got the menu in the way at the top, but right now we've got speed, LNAV, VNAV, path. What that's telling me is the autopilot is getting its speed from this flight management computer. The lateral control of the airplane, in other words left and right, the route the airplane is flying, is also controlled by the flight management computer and tied to the FMS with this button called LNAV, and that reflects on the primary flight display to tell me that I'm following my pre-programmed route of flight, which is represented on the navigation display by the purple magenta line. Currently navigating to Bombus. So that's what LNAV is about. VNAV path, that's the vertical navigation profile of the aircraft, in other words, up and down. If I go to the VNAV page on the CDU, you'll see that my cruise altitude is set at 360. So it's maintaining 36,000 feet, which you can see up top in magenta what it's trying to achieve, in white what it is achieving. And we're pretty much level at 360, so we're good there. You can also see the speed parameters. I have a long range cruise mode engaged right now, which is commanding the airplane, again in magenta, to maintain 0.84 Mach, or 84% of the speed of sound. And you can see again in magenta on the PFD, 0.84 Mach. And you can see the magenta pointer on the speed tape representing 0.84 Mach. And if you look at the bottom here, it has our current Mach number in white, currently 0.841, fluctuates a little bit. And then we have an indicated airspeed in knots, which is not very useful at the flight levels, but is obviously useful closer to the ground. So up here we have a little bit of a warning band, and then on top the red bricks there represent the overspeed. And then if I were to slow down, which I'm not going to do, but if I were, hang on a second. So if I were to slow down, it'd give me that cautionary zone, and then there would be red bricks again indicating the stall speed. Up at the center here, we have the AP indicating that the autopilot is currently flying the airplane. Radio altimeter, which reads 3 right now because we're not getting any ground signal because we're above 3,000 feet. We have a LNAV, VNAV indication, again indicating that the aircraft is in LNAV and VNAV. I have the flight director off at the right side here. If you look at the left PFD, it has those magenta bars in the center. Were I to hand fly the aircraft, I would want to keep those bars centered to fly the aircraft as it would want to be flown. So flight director is off on this side right now. I can turn that on just by hitting this switch right here, and now you'll see the same flight director bars on the primary flight display on the first officer side. Down here we have a segment of the compass rose. Down here on the bottom left we have our elapsed time, or the time we've been in the air, currently 9 hours 54 minutes. STD, or indicates standard, so that's standard barometric pressure of 29902 inches of mercury, or 1013 millibars. And here we have the current Zulu time, which is pretty close to real world time, as indicating 2115 Zulu. And again, that indicates in blue there UTC, Universal Coordinated Time, which is what everybody works to in aviation. So that's basically the primary flight display for you, which, as it indicates, that's your primary tool for flying the aircraft. This screen here and this bottom screen here, which I'll just pick a random selection here, are called multifunction displays, and they're called multifunction displays because they can display different things. Typically, On the captain's right inboard display and the first officer's left inboard display, you'll see the navigation display, which gives you a pictorial map of the route that you programmed into the flight computer. So here, that green indicator there, I can scale it down a little bit so it's easier to see. Maybe scale it down one more. So we see actually quite a lot right now on the navigation display. We see OMDB highlighted there, that's Dubai, and I've selected that in my fix page here. Where's the fix button? And I've just done that by entering the airport code, and that's telling me my bearing to Dubai and my distance from it. We're very close right now at 93 miles away. So again, if we had a problem, I just hit, go to legs page, fix page here, and this is only if we had a problem. I take OMDB, click on it, which puts in the what's called the scratch pad, and then I go to the legs page. If I wanted to go direct to OMDB, say I had a problem, I put that up, I'd hit that execute button, and as you can see by that dashed white line, it would take me directly to Dubai. I don't want to do that though, so I'm going to hit erase, and we're going to continue on our programmed route of flight, and you'll notice that the dash white line goes away. Other displays we have on here, we're currently giving a navigation aid of FJV. That's a variable omnidirectional radio, I think is what VOR stands for. So it's just a radio station on the ground which you can use to help navigate. And OIZJ is an airport that the 777 can land at. So if for some reason we couldn't use Dubai, as we go along here, the airplane will select different airports that it deems suitable for the airplane, and points those out to us. So again, if we had a problem and we couldn't go to Dubai for some reason, weather or whatever, we could go to OICJ. And again, magenta. This is the pre-programmed route of flight I've entered into the computer, and by having LNAV selected, the airplane's just going to follow this magenta line until it gets to the end, and when it gets to the end, it's going to go, what do you want me to do now? And then I'll have to tell it what to do, and hopefully I'll be awake to tell it what to do. So that's the Indy basically described. Our current heading, 330 degrees magnetic, segment of the compass rose. Our heading indicator bug, I can change that by spinning this around in different directions. I'll center it with our current heading for the moment at 330, so that centers that up. Here's our distance to our next waypoint, Gidel. Time we're going to be there, 21:20.3 Zulu, and our distance to run, which is currently 2.2 miles, and I'll let it flip over to the next waypoint and you can see what happens, both on the FMS here on the legs page and on the Indy. So there we go, we've switched it. Gidel turns white, indicating that we've passed that, and Botov now is in magenta, indicating that that's the next waypoint we're navigating to, and you can see again it's counting down the time and distance till we reach that waypoint. Some other displays here, we have RNP, that's random navigation performance. For the conditions we're flying in right now, random navigation performance needs to be within 2 miles. And then ANP is our actual navigation performance, and we're accurate to within 0.07 nautical miles. So it's pretty accurate right now. and GPS indicates that the map and the location of the airplane is being updated by GPS. And if I go to the progress page here and I hit position ref, we can see exactly how the airplane is navigating and getting its position. So we have the FMS or the GPS as our primary navigation source, indicating GPS right there. And it has our latitude and longitude, north 25, east 56, and some minutes and seconds to go along with that. You'll also notice that we have an inertial indication. And what that is if we go up top here to the overhead panel, you'll see this button that says ADIRU, and that's our inertial reference units. I forget what AD stands for, but an IRU stands for inertial reference unit. So you turn that on when you set up the flight deck, and you tell the airplane its latitude and longitude, which is posted on a sign at the gate. And based on that, the airplane uses laser-guided spinning gyros to keep track of the airplane's position based on how far it's detected and the movements detected since you left your initial parking spot. So you can see that the inertial position is a little bit different from the GPS position, and that's due to drift and gravitational forces, etc. So if we were navigating on inertial reference units alone, we would be up to 4.34 nautical miles off. Obviously we don't want that, which is why we also have the GPS updating us. GPS is accurate to within 0.09 nautical miles, so that's fairly accurate. And then in addition to that, when you're over land and you have navigation radio aids on the ground, it'll update our position that way. So right now it's updating different BOR stations on the ground and using that to update our position, which is not incredibly accurate, but it does help the computer calculate the difference and ultimately come up with our position. And you can see right now that's accurate within 0.04 nautical miles. So actually that's the most accurate at the moment as we're looking at this here. So again, it has at the bottom left here our random navigation performance requirement we need to be within 2 nautical miles actual performance, and right now we're at 0.06 nautical miles. And we could go further into this, look at the GPS left, GPS right, we can dig further down into that. But that is a relatively simple explanation of how we know that this map is accurate in determining our position. Our route of flight is only as accurate as I program it into the computer. So that's why you have to be extra careful when you're programming your route. In this case, I built my route in Professional Flight Planner X, exported it, and then loaded it from the flight management computer. So, I checked the overall distance. In the real world, you would check more details than that, each leg and the mileage between each leg. But for my purposes, I checked the distance, and as long as the distance is within a reasonable margin of what's on the flight plan, then I feel like we're good to go, and we've entered the right flight plan, or the airplane has uploaded the right flight plan. So that's the navigation display. We'll move on here to what's called the upper ICAS, engine crew alerting system. We have up here the total outside air temperature, the current what I'll call power limiter or governor on the engines and the mode that's governing them. Currently it says CRZ, which means cruise. And because we're in cruise mode with the engine controls, the maximum power that the aircraft is going to give us for this configuration is 97.1% in-1. In-1 is the speed of the big fan at the front of the engine. So this indicates the speed of our in-1, the big fan at the front of the engine. And as you can see, it's right now well below the 97.1 maximum that the airplane has set. Somewhere around 82.1 to 2% in-1. So below that we have the exhaust gas temperature. That's the temperature of the air coming out of the back of the engine, which we monitor and make sure it doesn't go into that amber or red bands. Same deal with the in-1. You have the amber marker there, and then the red marker, or the yellow, amber. The yellow marker indicating caution, the red marker indicating going beyond limits. So we can take a quick glance and know that our engines are doing okay as long as, you know, we're not in the yellow or the red, basically. And FMC there indicates that there's something that has been loaded into the FMS that I didn't, or been made available to be loaded into the FMS that I haven't actually loaded. I don't know what that is, but that's what that's there for. So that's the upper ICAS. This is the most basic engine instruments we need to monitor the airplane. Moving further down, we have the lower ICAS, or MFD. It's actually a multifunction display. Right now I have it set to the electrical system, but let's start with the engine. So here we have expanded engine parameters. N2, that's the center stage of the engine and the speed of that. Again, as long as it's not going up to the red, it's okay. Fuel flow. This is how much fuel we're using per engine per hour. Currently we're using about 15,200 pounds of fuel an hour, which is pretty good for this stage of flight. Oil pressure, pretty self-explanatory. Again, don't want to go into the yellow or the red. Oil temperature, again, no yellow or red. Oil quantity, and the vibration of the engines, that's how much the engines are vibrating. If it got too excessive, then that would indicate a problem with the engine. So that's the expanded engine parameters. We can also show the status of the airplane. This is the general status of the airplane, just a real quick look at it. The status of our hydraulic systems, we have 3. The indication of how much hydraulic fluid we have in each system at the moment, and the pressure in each system. All that looks good. And we have this APU section, which is information on the auxiliary power unit, little jet engine on the back of the aircraft that provides air conditioning and electrical power used to help start the airplane. It's off at the moment, so all the parameters are blank. And then the crew oxygen pressure is indicated there. And then at the bottom, we have universal coordinated time again, the date, April 1st, and the time we've been in the air, in this case 10 hours and 9 minutes now. So that's the status. We'll go move on to the next one. Again, this is our electrical system. You can see the status of the main battery, the volts, the amps, APU battery, the volts, the amps, and basically the way the electrical system works on most airplanes, including the 777, is electrical power is generated from the engines, and then it goes into the airplane and is fed that way. There is a backup generator for electrical power, and I think it's hydraulically driven, but I honestly don't remember. So that's the electrical system. Again, you see green, or the green is the active systems. White or blank is the inactive systems. So, for example, we don't have primary or secondary external power connected at the moment because we're obviously in the air and not on the ground. And the APU is off, so the APU is not generating power. So, here's a more detailed look at our hydraulic system. Again, 2 engine-driven hydraulic pumps, and 1, I believe, electrically driven hydraulic pump. And you can see what each system powers. So, for instance, the center system powers nose gear and steering, alternate brakes, flaps, main gear and steering, etc., etc. So that's the electrical system, and this is our fuel system. Gives us the total fuel we have on board right now, 130,600 pounds of fuel. You'll see that there is fuel in the center tank right now, but it's 0.2, and there's some limits to the functionality of the 777 from PMDG. So that 0.2 should not be there. It should have been able to burn off, but it wasn't able to burn off. So we have 0.2 in the center, 65.2 in the left wing tank. So in the left wing, 65.2, right wing, 65.1. There's a little bit of a difference there, but it's within tolerance, so we're good there. And then this airplane also has an option to add an auxiliary fuel tank, which I've done, so I can do flights like Newark to Singapore, and which is also currently empty. So that's the fuel system. And we have cross-feed valves, so if there was a major fuel imbalance between the left wing tank and the right wing tank, we can move fuel in between those 2 fuel tanks. And it looks like we're turning here at our next waypoint. Airplane's increasing power to stay level. So that's the fuel system. We'll move on to the air conditioning system. And this will demonstrate to you, hopefully, why you don't want to be on an airplane right now with coronavirus, etc. So air comes into the airplane via the engine. It's cooled off through what are called packs, and then it flows into the airplane. And it flows out of the airplane via what are called pressure relief valves, or outflow valves. So closed indicates, or C indicates that it's closed. W indicates that it's open, I would think, or wide open, or I actually don't know what W stands for, but you get the point. Right now the outflow valves are closer to closed. There's a little bit of room in there, so there's a little bit of air flowing out of the airplane. But the position of the outflow valves is what maintains pressurization. And then we have the temperature in the airplane in the different zones. Again, magenta is what it's set for, white is what it actually is. 24 degrees Celsius pretty much throughout the cabin and the flight deck. And then in the aft cargo hold, we set it for a temperature of 7. It's actually 12 in both the aft and the bulk. I don't know why there's such a difference there, but there is. So that's the pneumatic system, air system. And what do we got here? Got the position of the doors. They're all armed. So if a door were to open on the ground, it's the only way they can open at this point, unless there's a explosive decompression of some sort. So if I say I land, some virtual passenger decides to open the door while I'm taxiing, armed means that the slide would automatically deploy. Um, so, and then when we park at the gate, you obviously disarm the doors. So those are all the indications for the doors. And then we have indication for the gear. The gear is up currently and stowed in the belly of the airplane. So we can see all the gear doors are closed, as they should be. And we can also see the pressure of the tires. And those all look good. And then we also have brake temperatures. The brakes are only on the main gear, not the nose gear. So we have 3, 6, 12 tires in the back and 13, 14 tires in all. And the brakes temperature indicates 0, so the brakes are nice and cool right now. So that's that explained. And then we have the position of our flight controls. Since we're in straight and level flight, you can see that most of the flight, really all of the flight controls at the moment are in their neutral position. You can also see the position of the stabilizer trim, currently 4.25. Flight control mode that we're in, that's fly-by-wire stuff. It's in normal at the moment. The rudder trim, which is a 0, and this pictorial is used on the ground to check to make sure all the flight controls are working as they should be. And that's basically it for the system schematics. We also have the electronic flight checklist. I can go through and run different checklists. The next one would be descent checklists. So when we get to our descent, I'll try and remember to run through this and check off each item as we go along. There's also a non-normal menu. So if I had a problem, let's just select the landing gear here. Let's say my brake temperature, I got a brake temperature indication. So we'll go through and it'll give me the procedure for what I need to do for getting a brake temperature indication. Condition: one or more brake temperatures are high. Are you in flight? Let's say no. So it blanks out all the irrelevant data, all the irrelevant things on the checklist if your brake temperature is hot and you're in the air. And really the one thing you need to do at that point is refer to the recommended brake cooling schedule table, and that's not even relevant. So it doesn't actually give you any things to do other than wait for when your brakes get too hot. And my brakes frequently get too hot because I don't tend to land in the touchdown zone, and I have to use my brakes rather aggressively. So anyway, that's the electronic checklist. And down here we have the ACARS and data link system. So in the real world, you could communicate. These buttons are non-functional in the PMDG airplane. But in the real world, you could communicate with ATC via controller pilot data link with the ATC button. Flight information, I'm not quite sure what that does, but that's there too. And if you had a company, you can communicate with your dispatcher. So that's a whole element of the airplane that unfortunately PMDG did not simulate. And lastly here, we have a way to display the navigation display on the center pedestal should that screen fail, and you can actually move around the screens in almost as many ways as you like. For now I'm going to turn that off though. if I hit the right button. And we can see that now. So say this screen were to fail, I can move my primary flight display over to this screen. Go back to normal mode. And I can actually even select, if I put the selector on, I can select any one of these buttons and it'll display on there what I want to see. But because I don't want it to be a multifunction display, I want to revert to normal and the normal arrangements of things and give me the ND, I'll leave it there. But you get the idea. You can move the screens around. If one screen were to fail, there are sufficient backups to where you can get the information you need. That's basically it for most of the systems. Up here we've got a range selector. Oops. So I can zoom in and zoom out on my map. I can add various information in my map. I can hit weather radar, for instance, and it turns on my weather radar. Nothing displaying on it at the moment. I should probably actually leave that on. And I'll scale out on the map a little bit. But I can also display radio beacons on the ground, and it gives me all the different radio beacons on the ground that I could reference if I needed to. And also can show additional information on waypoints. Doesn't seem to be giving me much information there though. So I'll take that off. What else can we do here? Airport. This will highlight any airports, any appropriate airports that I can land at in the area. And what else do we have here? That's the display I was expecting. That's our ETA at each waypoint. Don't need that generally speaking, so we'll turn that off. And then that, if we zoom in on the display, let me do this now. If we zoom in enough here, and that's the lowest scale I can get, it indicates the position of the various inertial reference units and the GPS, and you can see it's kind of fluctuating a little bit, but it basically indicates where we are within the world. So we can take that off, zoom out again. What else can we do? We can put the terrain radar on. If you have terrain on, then it turns the weather radar off, because basically for terrain what it's doing is it's tilting your weather radar dish further down. So now it's giving us returns of the terrain on the ground. Currently we are in an area of high terrain. It's telling me that the highest terrain is 14,500 feet. MSL, mean sea level. And the lowest terrain is at 7,300 feet. So if we were to have a problem right now, we'd have to keep that in mind if we were to need to descend for any particular reason. So I'll go back to weather radar. Don't really need the terrain on right now, so I'm going to leave it off, but I will put the weather radar on the right side as well, just in case we do run into any weather. And zoom it out to a range of 40 miles, because that gives me a good visualization of what weather might be coming up. So we can move up to the autopilot display. There's only one autopilot button on the 777. I think there are 3 autopilot computers that it connects it to, but only one autopilot engage button, and it reflects on the captain's side and the first officer side. flight director switch, that's those purple bars that we talked about earlier. Auto throttle, you don't actually hit this switch to engage the auto throttle. You hit what's called the toggle switch on the throttles. But the AT button, auto throttle button, indicates that the auto throttle is engaged. And we can also go into a different mode with the auto throttle there. And if I wanted to change my speed for some reason, say ATC gave me a speed restriction of some sort, I can actually click on this and I can change it to Mach, and I can increase or decrease the speed of the airplane very quickly. I don't want to do that though, so I'm going to click that again. LNAV and BNAV, lateral navigation profile, vertical navigation profile, that's what's actively controlling the modes that are actively controlling the airplane right now. FLETCH, flight level change, is a way to climb or descend while telling the airplane to maintain a certain speed. As climb or descend is a function of speed. That's the easiest way to explain it. Autopilot disengage button, that's one way to disengage the autopilot. The better way, most common way though, is actually on the yoke. I know you can't see it, but there's an autopilot disengage button right there, which I will hit on approach at 1,000 feet as I turn the autopilot off. Other things we have here, we have the heading select. So if ATC were to tell me to turn right heading 340, I would select 340, hit the center button there, and the airplane would turn to 340. And it would then indicate heading at the center there, or heading select at the center there. And then we can also climb and descend in vertical speed mode. This sets a rate of climb or descent, say 500 feet a minute, and the airplane will descend at that vertical speed. And at that point, the speed window will also open, and you can control the airspeed of the airplane that way as well. But it functions, its primary goal is to maintain a certain rate of climb or descent. When you open vertical speed mode, hardly ever used in my experience with the 777. And lastly, here we have our altitude window. This is where we set our altitude. So if I, say for example, wanted to climb or descend, say I wanted to climb to 380, I roll it up to 380 and I'd hit that button right there, altitude intervene, and would climb to 380. I want to stay at 3.6 though, so I'll leave it at 3.6. Next step climb isn't for 729 miles, so no reason to climb or descend at the moment. And I already explained that. That's the bulk of that's the bulk of the systems on the airplane. The overhead panel gives you an overview of the systems and some switches to control them. Boeing has a lights on policy, so you want all your indications to be indicating on or auto. So ADIRU, that's on, that's the inertial reference systems that I talked about before. Asymmetric thrust compensation, so if one of my engines were to fail, this being in auto, means that the airplane will compensate with rudder to make up for the fact that one of my engines has failed. I can disconnect the primary flight computers via this guarded switch. Here we can control the electrical power for various elements of the airplane. The battery switch, APU generator switch, that's the APU start switch, and if I wanted to piss the passengers off, I could turn the in-flight entertainment system off and the cabin utility bus off. And these are, again, electrical controls. These are the buttons you would activate when ground power is connected to activate ground power as a power source. and you can see the left engine electrical generator, backup generator, same things that we discussed before for the electrical system. Here's a control for the windshield wipers on the left hand side. Let's see. Let me switch to overhead panel view here so it's not as hard to read or look at. That's better. So, here we can turn off the ground proximity warning switch. If for some reason, say our gear was stuck up, and we didn't want it screaming at us as we were coming down trying to do a belly landing, that would be the time to turn off or override the ground proximity warning. Emergency lights for the cabin. We can arm those or turn them on or turn them off. Service interphone, that's a way to communicate with the ground, I do believe. Passenger oxygen. If the cabin were to depressurize, the masks are supposed to automatically drop, but if they didn't, I could manually deploy them there. Window heat, that keeps fog from forming on the windows. Ram air turbine. If all our engines were to fail and all our electrical power were to go away because the engines failed, say in the event of running out of fuel, there's a little propeller at the tail of the airplane called a ram air turbine, and if I press this button, I can deploy the ram air turbine, or what's called the RAT, R-A-T, and that'll spin in the wind, and that'll give me some electrical power, some hydraulic power, just the basics I need to operate the aircraft. Obviously don't need that now because both engines are running and everything's going hunky-dory. Hydraulic system, left hydraulic system is on. Center hydraulic system, electrically driven hydraulic system, which is what I thought, hopefully what I said and thought. That's on, and the right hydraulic system tied to the engine is on. At the moment, passenger signs, seatbelt signs are off because it's smooth air. No electronic signs are off because we're over 10,000 feet. And here are some lighting controls. Master switch for the lights, overhead lights, dome light, glare shield, panel light, and landing lights, runway turn-off lights, taxi lights, strobe lights, beacon, navigation light, logo light, wing light. Wing light is for if you need to look at the condition of the wings, say for icing or for some other abnormality. Go back to a passenger window and look at that. You turn the wing lights on so you could see it, what's going on there. Here's our cargo fire suppression system. We could dispatch fire bottles into the cargo hold if we need to. Here's the electrical engine governors. So I told you before, like the aircraft is in cruise mode now. If I wanted to turn that off and disengage that, I would turn that off of what is that, norm? Yeah, I would turn that off of normal, and I'd be able to override that and give the engines full thrust if I needed it. Here's the engine start switches. Auto start, you can turn that on or off. Say I needed to land right now. I'm a little, not super heavy, but a little heavy. So if I need to dump fuel overboard to make sure that I'm not over my max gross landing weight, or my max landing weight, I could dump fuel overboard via the system. Here are the cross feeds to move fuel between the left and the right. Left fuel pumps, right fuel pumps for left wing and the right wing. Center fuel pumps, which are off at the moment because there's basically no fuel in the center tank. And the aux tank as well. There's no fuel in there, so that's off as well. Anti-ice systems on the 777. It's pretty simple. It has an automatic sensor. If it detects ice, it will, by it being an auto, it'll automatically come on. If I needed to manually turn it on for some reason, I can also turn it on. And if I wanted to turn it off, usually on the ground, I can turn it off as well. Air conditioning system. Equipment cooling fans, that's to keep the computers underneath the flight deck cool. That's in auto. The gasper, that's the little eyeball things above your head. That being on, that powers those. And then, here's the reason that you don't want to be on an airplane right now. We have what are called recirculation fans. So that takes some of the air that's gone through the cabin and it reuses it. This saves fuel. However, it can easily spread things such as viruses. So not a good idea to be in a confined place that's using recycled air right now. So, but that, you know, having the recirculation fans saves fuel, and it recycles some of the air in the cabin. Here we can control the flight deck temperature, the cabin temperature. We can reset the air conditioning system if we need to. Left pack, that's the left air conditioner, basically, to simplify it. Takes hot bleed air from the engine, cools it down, pumps it into the flight deck in this case, and then the cabin in that case. Trim air is another source of air. Bleed air takes the air from the engine, and then we can use the air from the APU to start the engine. On this airplane, that's all left in auto. When the bleed air is needed, by virtue of the auto start being engaged, the packs will automatically disengage, and you can start the engine with the air pressure generated from the APU. So that's all in auto. APU is in auto. Left engine pack is on. Right engine pack is on. At some airports, say high altitude airports, etc. High altitudes or a really hot day in Phoenix, for example, you would actually turn the air conditioning packs off to give you more power to be able to take off in the required runway. Pressurization, those are the outflow valves that I talked about earlier. We have a forward outflow valve and a aft outflow valve. By it being an auto, the system automatically controls the position of the outflow valve. If I were to have some sort of problem, I could go into a manual mode and manually control the position of the valves. And we can also, through the manual system, set our landing altitude, all that stuff. In the 777, that's all taken care of automatically, and that's derived from the flight management computer and the database that it has. And then there's a right wiper switch. And that's it for the overhead panel. Go to pedestal now, I suppose. So here we have a third CEDU control something unit, data unit, I think. So that's for entering information. In this case, I can talk to the cabin crew if I needed to. I can call crew rest and chime them if I need to, etc., etc. It's basically a line selector, phone line selector for communicating with various parts of the airplane. I'm trying to figure out how to go back here. Suppose we'll go to menu. Yeah, that gives me the menu. So that's the way I can choose to talk to various sections of the cabin. And then PMDG setup and FS actions. Those are functions of the simulation of the aircraft. Those are not functions that are really available in the real aircraft. But through PMDG setup, that's the airplane setup, I can set various options, like show thrust lever position. I'm going to say yes to that. Show fly-by-wire trim reference speed. I'm going to, we can turn that stuff on or off. We can choose whether the inertial reference units align fast or instant or realistically. Realistically, it takes quite some time to align those. Use last memory position. So all these various options. And we have aircraft options as well. We can do some failures. We can do equipment. Something I could show you here. FMS, instruments, packages, auxiliary fuel equipment. There we go. So I can select that to none. And if we go back to the overhead panel, you'll see that suddenly that auxiliary fuel tank has gone away. But I want that auxiliary fuel tank, so I'm going to move back to the pedestal and change that option. So 3 tanks. And it's empty anyway, so that shouldn't have changed my flight parameters. I don't know, maybe it changed the trim or something, but it didn't seem to affect things. We're still at 360, and things are still looking good as far as that goes. So that's it's just another backup unit, really. So we'll return to menu. Here's where the main FMS is stored. So there's a captain's FMS and the first officer's FMS. This is how you enter your flight plan, all the parameters of the flight. You enter it in there, and it comes workable through the autopilot system. So when I enter my route, for example, let's go to the menu here, and I'll show you how it works. I click on FMC, Flight Management Computer. And in this case, since we're in flight, it shows us the progress page. Let's go index. And let's go ident. So when you first load up the airplane, it's going to show you this ident page. It's going to show you it's the 777-200.2, the engines and their rating, and the navigation database that's installed. And our navigation database that's installed currently is valid from March 26th to April 23rd, 2020. And these are various parameters for the fuel. And then from there, you go to position initiation. Usually what you can do is you can select the last known position of the airplane and set that as the initial position. What you also can do is you can enter the airport that you're starting at and the gate that you're starting at. Granted, this doesn't generally work in Flight Simulator, but in the real world, you enter the airport that you're starting at and the gate that you're at, and the flight management computer will look up that information stored in its database, and go from there. Hey man, what's up? I'm just bored, so I'm going through the systems of the 777. So yeah, route. Obviously it's active right now, so oh, I can go to route 2. Let's do that. So let's go to the previous page. So this will show you, like, if I need to enter a second route. Say I wanted to go from, I don't know, London, which is Echo Golf Lima, invalid entry apparently. Well, on the ground, you can set the airport that you're starting at, set the airport that you're going to, and here we have route request, and once you select the airport that you're departing from and the airport that you're going to, if you save the flight plan in the system, as you can see I have, if I click on 777 here, this is your 777 specific routes, you can see that I've saved a bunch of routes, a whole lot of them. No problem, enjoying the tutorial. Oh good, I'm glad. So yeah, I've saved a whole lot of routes. So for example, Vancouver, Los Angeles. So if I selected that and hit request, it goes through and it requests the route. It's simulating a data link process, and eventually it will come back and it will tell me that the route has been route is ready route uplink ready. So I'll clear that message and I can hit load, and it'll take a minute, but it'll load the complete route into the flight management system. So by doing this, you don't actually have to manually enter the route. And we can check the various stages of the route. In this case, Vancouver NDB, the Whatcom NDB, that's Whatcom, Seattle, etc., etc. So this is particularly irrelevant as I am so far away from Seattle at this point. It's ridiculous, but you get my point. That's a backup route that you can put in the route database. And if I wanted to execute that route, I'd hit at the activate button. But I obviously don't want to do that, so I'll go back to route 1, and we can see, I think we can scroll back to the beginning of my flight plan here. Yes. So in my case, the active flight plan, YPPH Perth, Echo Golf Lima, London, the indication of the route that I've loaded, I can hit alternate, and I can go to any one of the closest airports and just go there. I can request the weather for the alternate. I can hit divert now. I can do all sorts of cool things. But obviously I don't want to do that. So we'll go to index, and we'll go back to we'll just go back to route here. So I guess it just shows me what's remaining in my route, but here you can show if I were to manually enter my route, I would you know, put an airway here, in this case Zulu 1, the waypoint I'm going to, ISN, and so on and so forth down the line. So airway is on the left, waypoints on the right is how that works. And I've entered my flight plan goes up to a waypoint called Logan, and then at Logan, if the airplane gets to the end of the route and I don't do something about it, it's just going to keep going in the direction it was last told to go. But what I'm going to end up doing at the end of the route is I'm going to hit this departure arrival page. I'm going to select my runway, for Heathrow. And I'm going to select the standard terminal arrival route for Heathrow. In this case, it's probably going to be a Loga 1 Hotel or Loga 1 Zulu. And I'll select that and select the runway, and that'll basically direct the flight management computer to fly to the runway, basically. It's the easiest way to explain that. So that's the route, departure, arrival, alternate, we've explained that. VNAV, here I can change my cruising altitude. For example, if I wanted to step to 38,000 feet, I can enter 380, select that up there, and right now it's giving me a warning. It's saying, hey, your maximum altitude that you can reach is at this weight is 37,700 feet. So obviously I don't want to do that, so I'll just hit erase. But if I wanted to change my altitude that way, I could. I'd also have to select it in the altitude window at top, but that's another way of doing it. I can also change my speed. So currently we're in long range cruise, which gives me 84% of the speed of sound, or 0.84 Mach. If I wanted to go to econ speed, which is based on a cost index of 100, I could hit econ, and it tell me the calculated speed, 0.834, and it give me the revised ETA at our destination, etc., etc. But because that would slow us down at this point, and we've got plenty of fuel, I'm going to hit erase because we don't need to do that. Other indications here, the N1 governor, 81.9%. Maybe that's not the governor, maybe that's what's set now. I think that's what's set now. The increments of step climb, reduced vertical separation minimums, RVSM is what that stands for. And it also indicates our next step climb to 380, the time we're going to reach that step climb, and the distance to that step climb, our ETA to London, the amount of fuel we'll have on board, currently 42,600 pounds. Also our optimum altitude, 36,300 feet now. Our recommended altitude, in this case 36,000 feet. And RTA progress, let's hit that. Not quite sure what that does, to be quite honest. Oh, that gives us our progress, the end of our progress page. So let's go back to VNAV for now. We can also hit the engine out button. It'll give us parameters for what would happen if we lost an engine, what speeds we would need, what altitude we would need to go down to, etc., etc. Obviously, both engines are running, so we don't need to do that, so hit erase. And then we have parameters for our descent as well. All on the VNAV page. Fixed page, I can enter an airport. You saw me do that earlier. In one of the fixed pages here, I have Dubai entered. It gives me my bearing to Dubai and the distance. So that's what that's about. Legs page gives me a different view of my route. At least you have another step. Yeah, I do. I did one more step, I think. I don't think we're gonna make it to 40. We might, but I doubt it. So yeah, legs page. This gives me all the individual waypoints on my route that I've programmed. There's a whole hell of a lot of them. And if I wanted to go to direct to a certain waypoint, say ATC said Qantas 009 heavy, fly direct Bravo Uniform Bravo, I could say, okay, Bravo Uniform Bravo, select that in the scratch pad, go back to my active waypoint, which of course is scrolling back bar, line selected up, and if I wanted to go directly there, you can see the dashed white line indicating my path to that waypoint, and I could fly directly there. Obviously, though, I don't want to do that, so I'll hit erase. So that's the leg page. Hold. You can set up a hold at any waypoint or your present position. It's useful, particularly going into London if there's a lot of traffic. I'm not flying on that sim, so there won't be, but if there were, then you could hold at any waypoint that ATC assigns you, and you know, set the parameters of that hold. FMC communications. You can uplink the wind data, alternate, pre-flight, etc. Position report. If you're flying, say, over the Atlantic, you could use this page to easily report to ATC your what fuel you had at a certain waypoint and your estimated time to crossing the next waypoint. It's been a while since I've done this, but you know, Qantas 009 Heavy over Dedic at time 2213 Zulu 360. And with 120,300 pounds of fuel, estimating Muxus time 2224 Zulu, next ISN. That's probably not a perfect position report, but that's a good example of how you would use that page, and use that over the North Atlantic as well as some of the airspace that we're actually flying over right now. It also gives the temperature of the waypoint, the wind, etc. So sent report, that doesn't work because oh, apparently it does work. I didn't know that worked. Report sent. So you can send a position report. I don't know where it goes, but you can. So that's position report from FC Comms. Progress page, that just gives me the progress of the flight. My current waypoint that I'm navigating to, the distance to, the estimated time of arrival, fuel on board, next waypoint, and my destination, London in this case, Echo Golf Lima Lima, London Heathrow. Distance to go, 2,671 miles, and the time I'll be there, 3:58 Zulu, and the estimated fuel I'll have on board, 42,600 pounds of fuel. Also indicates my speed, 0.84, distance to step climb. Incidentally, if I wanted to change my speed, say I wanted to go, I'm not going to do this, but say I wanted to go to 0.86 Mach, which would be ridiculous, I should be able to change it in there, maybe not. Yeah, I have to change it in the VNAV page, that's what it is. So 0.86, say I wanted to go up to that, line select that up there, and I can execute that. Not going to execute that, though, because that would waste fuel. And we don't want to do that. We're doing okay on fuel, but we don't want to waste fuel. Menu, we've already gone through that. Navrad. This shows us the status of our navigation radios, what BOR they're tuned to, what radio they're on. And in the case of an ILS, it shows us the frequency and course of the ILS, which I'll use on approach into Heathrow to check and make sure it's set right. And really, that's it for the FMS. And I am not at the VAT sim at the moment. Let me check VAT Spy. See if there's anything doing. Take a break from the tutorial here. Because my voice is getting hoarse anyway. So how'd you rate my 777 tutorial? Good, bad? I think I do okay. I've learned most of the stuff I know from watching Just Planes videos. Actually, there is some ATC on at the moment. Quite a bit, actually. Europe's kind of fallen asleep at this point, but Iran, Iraq, Syria, I think, Saudi Arabia, Dubai looks like is on. So there's a fair amount of traffic. I realize you can't see my screen now. There's fair amount of ATC on in the Middle East at the moment. And a fair amount of ATC on in North America at the moment, and even South America and Central America. But at the moment, let's see, my present position, I'm over Iran, so I mean I could log into BatSim, but odds are I'll probably sneak off for another nap here. You rate it perfect. 110 out of 5. Sweet. So I mean, I could log on to BatSim if I wanted to, but you know, I think I'm gonna wait until I get closer to top of descent before I log on to BatSim. Like I said, I may sneak off and take another nap. We'll see. We'll see if I even log into BatSim at all. It's, you know, if there's no control on, if there's, couldn't have done it better myself. Ha! Thank you for the high praise. I appreciate that. But yeah, you know, we'll see how tired I am when I get to London and if there's any ATC on. At the moment, estimating London at 4:58 in the morning local time, so I doubt there's going to be any ATC on, or much traffic in the area either, so while I enjoy BatSim immensely, sometimes it stresses me out, other times I don't see much reason to be on the network right now. Especially considering that I'm probably due for another nap here before I land, because I've been up for a while. So at any rate, I don't know, Slevin, any things that I missed in kind of showing off the flight deck here? I suppose the radio panels. There's a trim indication, parking brake, spoilers, which you can't see very well. Spoilers up there. Backup trim, fuel cutoff switches to shut the engine down or to supply fuel to the engine on start. Throttles, currently in auto, and they'll move according to the auto throttles commands right now. Our flap lever, right up there, goes from, goes in kind of random increments of degrees, not like the Airbus. Yeah, flaps up, flaps 1, so 1 degree of flap, 5 degree of flap, 15 degree of flap, 20 degree of flap, 25 degree of flap, 30 degree of flap. 25 or 30 is usually used for landing, 25 on longer runways. We could probably do flaps 25 at Heathrow, actually, but out of force of habit, I usually use flaps 30. And depending on your weight and certain characteristics on takeoff, I've seen flaps 5 being used. If you're light or have a really long runway, it'll give you a high rotation speed, but you can use flaps 5. Probably use 15 as well, but I generally use 20 to be on the safe side, play it conservatively. Somebody once commented, that's a lot of flap, and it's like, well, no. That's what, in the videos I've watched, I've seen captains use flap 20 fairly often on the 777. On the 787, you have, on the 787-8, you have the same flap settings, same range. On 787-9, however, and -10, Boeing tries to confuse you by allowing more flap settings for different takeoff scenarios, or to give you more takeoff options. So beyond flaps 15, they have, I think, 17 and 19 from memory. So there's 2 additional flap notches, and that's to allow you more flexibility to take off from shorter runways. So that's flaps explained. And flaps and slats are interconnected, so there's not a separate lever for slats on the 777 or any Boeing aircraft for that matter. Unless you consider the 717 a Boeing aircraft, which I don't. So on the pedestal here, we're talking to ATC. We have a standby frequency selector. So say we're gonna log on to VATSIM. Unicom is 122.8, so I can select 122.8. And when I'm ready to use it, I hit the swap button. 122.8 becomes active. So that's how you tune different radio frequencies. You can also tune in high frequency radio for over oceans and remote places of the world. Various knobs and switches. I don't know what all of them do, to be quite honest. We'll switch to pedestal. Yeah, so I don't know what a lot of that stuff does. Our transponder is over here. And unfortunately I can't get a good view of it with the angle that Chaseplane has, which is a problem. But basically, ATC gives you a code when they initially give you your clearance. So say it's 36. Where's the other knob? 3652. So, you know, say they said Qantas 009 Heavy Squawk 3652. So I'd enter that in the box there, and I'd make sure that my TCAS, Traffic Collision and Avoidance System, was selected to on. That tells ATC pretty precisely via radar and via a box that we have on board the aircraft where I am. It also tells the aircraft in the area where I am. So if I got too close to another airplane, it'd first call out traffic, and warn me. And then if I still continued to get too close, it would tell me to either climb or descend. If it told me to climb, it'd tell the other airplane to descend. So that's TCAS for you. Rudder trim. You can't see it real well. But right here are the fire extinguishers if I were to have an engine fire. There's 2 bottles per engine, I believe. So if I were to have a problem, close the thrust lever, verify it's the right engine, or it's the correct engine that's on fire, shut off the fuel, pull the switch, wait a couple seconds. Pulling the switch disconnects the electrics and all that stuff from the engine, isolates the engine is the term. If I see that the engine is still on fire, I turn it to the left and fire 1 fire extinguishing agent. If you're really unfortunate and your fire is still burning, you can turn it to the right. And if the fire is still burning after you fire both extinguishing bottles, then bend over and kiss your ass goodbye at that point. But it gives you some amount of protection. And that's basically it, I think. So we'll go back to Captain here. So yeah, I've talked myself hoarse. Hopefully I've shut off the airplane. I know this isn't real life, but can you tell me how you use the auto step climb feature in the PMDG? I couldn't get it working on the 747. Sure. Hopefully you're still watching, because I didn't see that message for a rather long time. What you do, it's real easy in the PMDG. It confuses the hell out of me in the 787, but maybe you can do me a reverse favor and maybe do a stream and show me how to do it properly in the 787. But anyway, if you hit menu on the CDU, any of the CDUs, you're gonna get this menu here, FMC, EFIS control, display control, and you'll see two options here. You'll see PMDG setup, which controls various options for the airplane, in which is buried, in that very complicated set of menus is buried an auto step climb feature, but the faster way to get to it is if you click on FS Actions, and here's where you load your fuel and payload. So, you know, if I wanted to add fuel at this point, I'd do that through this menu. And then for loading your payload, there's your zero fuel weight, and that's the way you do it. That way. And if I wanted to open doors, do a pushback, etc., ground connections, ground surfaces. But in this case, what we're looking for is this button called Auto Cruise. And when you hit Auto Cruise, you get a number of options. Auto step climb, so you hit yes, and when it reaches a point of step climb that it determines, or I suppose, you know, if you went through and you manually entered at a certain waypoint, like you should do, you know, flight level 380 or dash 380S, that would tell the airplane to step climb at a certain waypoint. But however you do it, the airplane's counting distance to the step climb down here. In this case, it'll be 380. So, you know, if I wanted to go off and do something else, as I may well do, I just hit auto step climb yes, and when it reaches that step climb point, it'll automatically step climb. 747, same way. Real easy. 737 NGU might have it. I'm not entirely sure. I haven't looked. And there's also the pause at top of descent feature. So if you click yes on this, pretty self-explanatory. It'll pause before a couple miles before it gets to its top of descent point. So if you really have to, you know, go do something and you won't be back to the simulator in a while, you can set it so it'll automatically pause. And here are some features that I never use, but I suppose some people might want to use them. You can increase the simulation rate, auto time compression, etc. I don't ever mess with that stuff, but that is an option. So hopefully that helped you out. Hopefully. If you have more questions, though, let me know, because might as well be a conduit of information here. But at this point, I've talked myself hoarse, so I am officially done showing off everything. That's pretty much everything I know about the 777 as far as systems go. If I have time, as I'm on approach, and energy, I'll try and talk my way through what I'm doing as I'm doing it. But if you're really curious about some more in-depth details about any airliner, really, justplanes.com is a great resource. They have videos recorded in the flight deck. You can also look up ITTV. They have great videos on the 74s, the 777, A330, A340, 747-200, and Slavin, you'll love this. They have a video on Concorde from British Airways. And watching that video did two things for me. One, it bored me to tears, because I'm just not all that interested in all the various systems and dials and INS systems they had to use, I just like way over my head, too complicated. So it bored me to tears, number one. And number two, just showed me how complicated that airplane was and how hard you had to work to keep the systems of an airplane going with the flight engineer and whatnot. You know, before the modern era, before the invention of this lovely flight management system, which, while it's hard to learn, it's not as hard as INS is. INS, basically, you have to enter the latitude and longitude of each waypoint, which is a huge pain in the ass, especially on a route like this, where there are so many damn waypoints. So, anyway. Yeah. So we still have 2,541 miles to go, and estimating 5 o'clock a.m. landing time in London, which would be 9 o'clock, be 9 in the evening for me. So at this point we still have roughly 5 hours and 24 minutes to go, roughly. Concorde. I can tell you're a fan, Sleb, and I don't want to insult your favorite airplane. Help me very much, thank you. Think I will be taking the 747 for a flight soon, either the Virgin, KLM, or Lufthansa. I have a hard time saying Lufthansa. Yeah, 747, I've ridden on it 4 times. Qantas, flight down to, from Los Angeles to Melbourne. Original 747-400, not the ER. This was 2001, spring of 2001, before the ER came out. So, they must have been massively payload limited to do that flight. But that was the first time I got to ride on a 747. Second time was the flight back, Sydney to LAX. And then the third time was British Airways 284, San Francisco to London, Heathrow. And then the fourth time was back from London, Heathrow to San Francisco. Other planes I've been on A320s a fair amount of times. A320s, A321s, A319s, and I've been on a 757. I don't think I've been on a 767, but I'm not entirely sure. I haven't been on an A330, A340, A350, A380. Been on 73s, as I mentioned, been on 74s, been on 75s. I haven't been on a 777. For all I know about the 777, I haven't been on one. I would like to ride a one. And I haven't been... Oh, no, I've been on the 787. 787-8, flying from Oakland to Oslo and back. So 2 flights on a 787. And that was back when it was brand new and they were still... You know, honestly, I'm still not entirely convinced that they fixed the battery issue completely. It seems to have mostly resolved itself, but I'm not 100% in their fix. But anyway, 787's been out there and proved itself for a long time, so I guess we're not worried about that anymore. So yeah, those are the airplanes I've been on. I think those are all the airplanes I've been on, with the exclusion of GA. GA, I've flown as a student pilot, I've flown a 152, 172, and a Piper Tomahawk. The first plane ride I took as a kid that got me into aviation, got me to go home and start playing airplane on my bunk bed, and then eventually get Sierra Pro 99, and then eventually get Flight Simulator 98, and so on and so forth. I don't remember, might have been a Long Easy, might have been, I think it was a kit-built airplane, but I don't remember what it was. But anyway, my entry into the aviation world was through general aviation. It was only after getting a ride in a GA aircraft that I got to ride in a 737, probably 300, maybe 700. I don't remember what year it was. But my first airliner trip was from Sacramento Metropolitan Field in Sacramento, California, to Ontario, California, Ontario International, in the Southwest 737. So, as a result of that trip, my favorite airplanes, in general, my favorite airplanes, two favorite airplanes, 737 and 747. In this sim, even though I like the 747 more, I fly based mostly on what the real equipment type is that's being used on the route. So, you know, if the real flight's using a 777, I'll use a 777, and so on and so forth. Obviously, I've broken my rules today, because the real aircraft used on Qantas Flight 9 is 787, but because of the step climb issues, I didn't want to screw with that, so using the 777 today. And of course, the 777 200LR has more range than the 78, so it's a more comfortable flight in a 200LR from a fuel planning perspective. Although, without the aux fuel tanks, the maximum fuel the 777 200LR can hold is 320,000 pounds, which is the same fuel load that the 777 300ER can hold. But because the 200LR is lighter, it can go further on the same amount of fuel. But anyway, the fuel I loaded on today, out of a maximum of 320,000 pounds that the airplane can carry, I loaded on 319,603 pounds of fuel. Tank capacity is apparently 319,727, so I'm very close to full fuel today, for this flight. So we're pushing the 200LR to its limits, with 200LR without auxiliary fuel tanks anyway. So back to the chat room here. Hopefully I haven't lost you again. Concorde was a huge pain in the ass, but I love the plane anyway. I much rather prefer the newer Norwegian navigation systems and the newer planes. 787 for the win. Yeah, I've grown to really like the 78. I do wish that Quality Wings had gone into a little bit more fidelity with systems, but it's pretty darn good. And it's gotten better with each subsequent patch. They haven't released a patch in a really long time, so since they released the Dash 10, so I'm thinking Quality Wings is probably done updating the 787, which is unfortunate, but you know, every product at a certain point has to reach the end of its update life cycle. Even Windows reaches the end of its update life cycle, and Microsoft makes you buy the next version of Windows. So yeah, my voice is incredibly tired, and I'm hoarse, so no wonder I've been going for an hour and 49 minutes. God, I'm long-winded. So hopefully I can clip this tutorial and kind of share it. Honestly, is DB streaming again? Slabbin? Because if he is, then I'll raid him with all of my two viewers. They might be focusing on bringing it to Flight Sim 2020. That's a good point. Fingers crossed that they will. I have mixed feelings about the next version of Flight Simulator. I released a podcast talking about my feelings about the community, etc., where we stand, how immature a lot of people are, including people in flight sim media. Whining about the skyrocketing prices of add-ons. Which, yes, the prices of add-ons are going up, but they're going up because the cost to developers is going up. And developers have a slim profit margin, so they gotta hike the price up, unfortunately. And you don't see him streaming. Okay, well, I'll keep going then. The other point there is, you know, I'm not a capitalist by any means, but under the capitalistic system that we have, the lovely capitalistic system that we have, the way to show that you value something is to put money towards it. And for me, with the exception of the DC-6, I have purchased everything that PMDG has put out. For both P3D and FSX. So I have the 777 $200. I have the 777 300ER expansion. If they come out with the 777 200ER, I'll buy that as well. Don't know why, but I will. And 747-400, got it. 747-8, got it. Never use it, but I have it. And 747, those are all the 747, current 747 products. And the old NGX, I've got that for both FSX and P3D. And the NGU I've purchased. And the JS41 way back, I purchased that. There was only two PMDG products that were released since 2006 that I didn't buy. And that was DC-6 and the MD-11. Because I don't give a shit about either of those airplanes. I hate to put it that meanly, but I don't. Yeah, it is a money issue, yeah. I mean, I don't want to calculate how much money I've spent on P3D. And I dabble a little bit in X-Plane, and yet I never use it. But I can tell you this. I have... Let's see if I have it open here. Share my screen for a minute. See if you can see it well enough. These are all the sceneries I have for P3D. Tons and tons and tons of sceneries. My pretend virtual airline is called Travel World Airlines. What I did was one of the default airlines in Flight Simulator back in the day was called World Travel Airlines. So I took that, I reversed it, called it Travel World Airlines, which just so happens to abbreviate to TWA, which I didn't notice when I was putting it together. Which means that I can use TWA paint jobs, which is great when they're available. And in my world, TWA or Trans World Airlines went whatever way it went, died, whatever. And then Travel World Airlines came along, and it bought American, so it can use all Americans' routes. And it also has its own routes, so I have a lot of freedom when I'm freelancing around the world. So, 41 U.S. airports, 40 international airports. I'm almost at an even spread. As you can see, I've got, what is that? 81 places to fly. And here's the pathetic thing. After 2 weeks or so quarantine. You remember that FSRideAlong? Old school days, right? But yeah, after, the sad part is, pathetic thing is, after, 2.5 weeks of, quarantine, and, flying around the world at this point, roughly 2.5 times, I want to fly into Keflavik. I bought it for a reason. I'm excited about that, but it's not like, oh my god, I have Keflavik in my airport database now. All is right with the world. Or, oh my god, I have, New Delhi in my database now. All is right with the world. It's, you know, it's... There are limits to the entertainment value of flight sim, as a solo, occupation. It gets better when you have, when you're streaming, and you have people chatting and interacting with you. That makes it better. Bat sim makes it better. But still, bottom line, when it comes down to it, we got some weather coming up here, so I'm going to turn the seatbelt sign on. Make a quick PA. Folks, the captain speaking. We're approaching some weather. Please return to your seats and fasten your seatbelts. Thank you. So at any rate, I'm sure, as you well know, Slevin, you know, there comes a point where there's only so much you can do in the simulator, and, you know, you realize the limits of Flight Simulator. And I'm sure the new Flight Simulator will push the boundaries. I'm sure the new Flight Simulator will make me go broke all over again. But the problem I have is, at the end of the day, it's still a simulator, and it's, you know, at the end of the day, I'm sitting in my apartment all alone, playing a video game, at the end of the day. That doesn't mean that I don't enjoy it. That doesn't mean that I don't get a lot from it, but, when you're in quarantine for multiple weeks, it does get old, so. Group flights makes it fun, yes. Yes, we need to do more of that. More of that. By the way, were you able to land in Atlanta successfully? I want to hear about that. I want to hear how that went. Unfortunately, I couldn't do that because I'm currently over the Middle East somewhere. Iran, I think. Yep, Iran. So we gotta hope there's no air-to-air missiles on the ground to shoot us down. Like that poor Malaysian aircraft over Ukraine. It's amazing to me. 777 went into service, I think, 1995 or somewhere in that area. 94, 95, somewhere around there. Didn't have a fatal accident until the Asiana 214 crashed at San Francisco. And that was 2014, so that's 11 years of service without a single fatality. That's pretty remarkable. Oh, sorry, 9 years. I can't do math. Still, that's respectable. Very respectable. So, we're still estimating, we're now estimating 401 Zulu. It's funny, the overlay is actually agreeing with the time on the flight management computer, which is rare. But anyway, I need to step away for a quick break here. But please stay tuned if you have something that you want to chat about. I do too. I will be back. Alright, I'm back. Sorry I was away so long. Well, good night, Slevin. Thank you for checking in. I appreciate you checking in so much. If you feel like waking up early, about 5 o'clock a.m. your time, I'll be getting ready for the descent. But sleep well and stay healthy, my friend. And I would definitely love to do a flight with you. And yeah, Atlanta landing went fine. Apparently I landed with 11 feet per minute, but the frames kicked me out while taxiing to stand. Such a shame that Bolts couldn't finish with me, and unfortunately you couldn't join us. Yeah, next time, Gadget, next time. I feel like I want to complete this round the world trek. I know I want to go to Keflavik. And I think my plan at this stage of the game is to land in London. I managed to stay up till 9 p.m. my time. Land in London, take a quick snooze, and then head out to Keflavik, probably in the 757, maybe in the 73. Land in Keflavik, and then go Keflavik to Seattle, and then Seattle back down to the West Coast, San Francisco area. So that's my generalized plan at this stage of the game. Could change, but that's how I'm passing my quarantine time. So at this point, we got some weather on the radar, obviously. I would try to steer around it, but Active Sky is a little weird in the way it depicts weather, and if you try to steer around it, it really doesn't work. So the poor passengers will just have to suffer through it. I got the seatbelt sign on at the moment, and approximately, let's see, you just passed 2300 Zulu, so approximately 5 hours to go at this point. So not too much further to go. I'm definitely not going to stream all 5 hours of that. I've been talking way too much and need a break. So I think I will do that at this point. Shut it off until probably 3 o'clock Zulu or so. I'll come back on and do the approach and landing into London Heathrow. So at this stage of the game, I thank everybody so much for watching. Please come back around 3 o'clock Zulu, and you'll hear more from me then. Till next time, stay safe, stay sane, happy railroading, happy landings. Bye.